Just recognize that even if somebody does judge me, it doesn't mean that I have to judge me, and people judge, not because it's personal. Yeah, oftentimes they're judging something in you that they're unwilling to acknowledge about themselves. There seems to be a couple of different types of people in the world. The ones that sit in judgments of themselves continuously. And then there's the other people who tend to sit in judgment of everybody else continuously. So, so I don't really have that much time for judging other people because I'm too busy doing it for myself.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another knowledge bomb episode of Lead to Greatness, where we believe in helping others reach their greatest potential and together change the world. Today on Lead to Greatness, we have Brendon Watt. If this is your first time joining us, please consider subscribing and hit that notification bell and hit that like button. This will be greatly appreciated in helping getting out this content to great leaders and great individuals like yourself. Brendon is a worldwide speaker, best-selling author, and facilitator for Access Conscious, a global empowerment company presented in 176 countries. His classes and workshops empowers others to know they are not wrong, that anything is possible, and that they are just one choice away from change. Please help me welcome Brendon with the power of choice. Cedric Francis, and you're listening to Lead to Greatness.
My name's Brendon Watt, and I'm a facilitator for a company called Access Consciousness. It's an empowerment company that does seminars all around the world, and I actually found these guys 13 years ago when I was living in Australia, and basically at this point in my life that I was just miserable. I'd done everything that I thought I was supposed to. I had a kid, had the relationship, I got a trade, which is what I was told was all I could do, be a construction worker. So I was like ticking all the boxes, but nothing was working. My life was not working, and I didn't like myself, at all. Basically got to a point where I didn't really want to live anymore. And I started I asked for help. I was crying out for help. The founder of the company was actually coming to Australia to do a seminar. And I was like, how do I meet this guy? How do I meet this man? And, and I did some different things to get to meet him, but my life started changing pretty quickly when I realized one of the first things that I got in one of these seminars that kind of blew my world apart. He said, your life today is the sum total of every choice that you've ever made. And I was like, what? Because for me at that point, what I'd done my whole life was looked at being basically the effect of the world around me. I had a lot of abuse when I was a kid. So it was like, well, that's why I'm unhappy. I mean, hello, that's a great excuse to be unhappy. That's why I can't create my life. And, and I grew up with we had no money. So that was a great excuse to not have any money and not know anything about business and not know anything about money. So I had victim down to a fine science. And, when I heard that, I went, oh, wow, if I've actually created this life based on the choices that I've made, what else could I choose? That was really the beginning for me to recognize, wait a minute, I'm in the driver's seat here. And I started creating something different, but it's been up and down since. I mean, one of the struggles I've had my whole life is with addiction, with alcohol even with all of these tools, it was still something I really, kept hidden from me. And that was a tough one to recognize. If I don't actually get honest with myself and deal with this part also, then I might not have a future.
Wow. This is amazing. Talked about your past, and I actually wrote it on the paper. I wrote past and I wrote future. And in the middle of it, I drew an arrow and I put now. Because I think a lot of times we're focusing on the past, what happened to us, and we're upset about it, and as if it's going to change, and it's really not. But I have this right now, this power of right now where I can make a change. I can make a conscious decision right now to say I'm going to do something different to alternate my future. It's one thing to turn on the light bulb, but it's another thing for the light bulb to start working.
Well, the thing that you said there about, for a lot of us, we kind of get stuck in the past and the things that we've chosen, up until this point. And that basically what sticks us there is all the judgment that we have of it. And it's like, so people will look at, do you have any regrets? Like, how many regrets do you have? And regrets are based on that. They're all based on judgment. So for anyone, if you look at something that you're stuck in your past, look at it and go, okay, so what's the gift in this that I'm not acknowledging? And get kind of present with it, rather than just be a question, oh, what's the gift? And not really want to pay any attention to it because you've spent the last 10 years trying to get away from it, but it's still there because it's just still there. You still have that judgment of it. So if you look at it and ask that question, okay, what's the gift here? And it may seem like something you can't even get a sense of. It may seem like something that you've got in your world where it's like this greatest wrongness of you that you carry around with you. But when you ask from that space and you're willing to actually get present with it, how much would you have in gratitude for the choice that you made in that moment? How much would that allow you to actually have the access to all the awareness that came with it? And for me, it was my greatest shame. The thing that I didn't want to expose to the world. I didn't want to expose to myself, which kept me stuck in it, because anything that we keep hidden from us, you cannot change. Anything you keep hidden from yourself, you cannot change. When I asked this question, which I won't lie, was not easy to look at, when I actually got present with that. And what I realized that without it, I wouldn't have the strength that I have right now. I wouldn't have the honesty with myself that I have right now. Definitely wouldn't have the way that I could be with it in the world and facilitate others and contribute to other people's lives the way that I do now. So you take something that is covered in all this crap, all this wrongness, all this judgment that we have, and you be present with that. What I found is, for each and every one of us, is your greatest wrongness will often reveal your greatest strongness also.
My goodness, that is a knowledge bomb.
And a lot of us can relate to this, is when you expose, let's say even as a kid, you might expose some level of joy in your world, like some level of like excitement, and you're kind of made wrong for that. So then you begin, based on the judgments that other people have, you begin to kind of shut that stuff away and hide that from the world. And I think that's one of the things that gets us stuck. But our point of view creates our reality. So if I have the point of view that everybody's going to judge me based on this, then all I can receive is everybody's judgments based on what I've already, created as a judgment of myself. So I would say, recognize that and just be like, okay, so I wonder who I could talk to about this, but also write it down. Because one of the things I found, like early on in my sobriety, I wrote and wrote and wrote because I realized that I couldn't lie to myself on paper.
Wow.
Try and write yourself a lie on paper, you'll know instantaneously. So, I did that. And, and I also just recognize that even if somebody does judge me, it doesn't mean that I have to judge me, and people judge, not because it's personal. Oftentimes they're judging something in you that they're unwilling to acknowledge about themselves. There seems to be a couple of different types of people in the world. The ones that sit in judgments of themselves continuously. And then there's the other people who tend to sit in judgment of everybody else continuously. So, so I don't really have that much time for judging other people because I'm too busy doing it for myself, but that's another story.
Yes.
But it's like, but one thing I do know is if I have a judgment of somebody else, is I look at it and go, okay, so where have I been there and done that? The way I like to look at that part is that's a lot of vulnerability with yourself, but that also, there's a lot of power in that, to recognize that if you can look at it like that, then you can begin to change in you what's going to allow the world around you to change.
My goodness, you are dropping some knowledge bombs. I love you made this phrase, and I have to say it again. Even if people judge you, Don't judge yourself. That is so powerful. We oftentimes judging ourselves because of what people said about us and people
Yeah.
identifying and creating this image of us because the only thing they know about themselves is what mama said, daddy said, society said, the
Yep.
environment said, the income said, the car said, the house said, the clothes said, the bags and the hairdo and the makeup, the haircuts, all these things that talks and identify who we are.
Well, man, I love the way that you put that because it is. 99% of the points of view that I had about myself weren't mine to begin with. They're all the choices that I'd made had basically created the life that I was living. Well, the choice that I made to align and agree or resist and react to all the points of view that were coming at me were the things that were creating my life. I know that my choices create, but also for most of us, we're not actually taught how to use it. My choices are X, Y, and Z.
Oh man.
Basically, here's my menu of choices.
Mm.
So our choices are basically determined by the reality that we've, created or the reality that we live in, rather than, wow, if I actually had infinite choice. See, because you'll notice that 99,000% of the choices that we have available, they don't even come into our radar because they don't match our reality. I'll give you an example of this. When I was a little kid, I always wanted to fly a plane. I wanted to be a pilot. I want to be able to fly a plane. And then it was just like, well, that's just ridiculous. That's never going to happen. It was so far out of my universe. It couldn't even exist in the realm of what I could choose. And I've been looking at a lot lately, okay, what energy would I like to have as my life? Like, what would I like my life to be like if I could have anything? And I was recently, a couple of weeks ago, I was in Colombia doing a seminar down there, and I was talking with someone, and she was like, oh, she was just out of the blue. She said, oh, yeah, my husband just got his pilot license. So I called this guy, and I talked to him, and he's like, you want to come out in my plane tomorrow? I was like, yes, please. And and I started asking him questions, and he's like, dude, here's some pilot schools in Houston, and here's what you got to do, here's how much it costs, here's how long it takes. And I was like, instantaneously I realized that I actually do have that choice. And so I'm actually going tomorrow, I'm going to have my first flying lesson.
Amazing. And congratulations.
If I wouldn't have asked for a different sense of what I'd like my life to be like, that choice couldn't have even come into existence.
You just said something that I want to pause right here and just wow, just knowledge bomb. Listen, you just said something. You basically created the atmosphere in your own mind to even allow the choice to make this move in your life, because if you wouldn't have created the atmosphere in your mind, the choice would have never even came.
That's and that's it. And it all begins with your request. Like, we talk about in the Bible, ask and you shall receive, the law of the universe, but everyone now functions from, well, how do I get there? How do I figure it out? How am I going to make this happen? But it's always about basically, how do I control this into existence, rather than how do I ask for it? And then what choices can I make that would actually allow me to receive it? And
my goodness.
So for me, I have no doubt that choice wouldn't have even shown up unless I actually began to get a sense of what it would be like. And here's with using this ask and receive, is what you want to do is get a sense of what it is you'd like to have in your life. If that's like, what, I'd like to have a new job, rather than define that new career, rather than go, I'd like to have a new job and I want it to be here and I want it to do this and I want it to pay this. What if you want, what, I'd actually like to have a new career that really expansive, where I meet interesting people and I actually really enjoy getting up in the morning and going there. I'd like to be contributing this, or I'd like it to be creating this. And you kind of get a sense of that and get a sense of what it would feel like in your world. Now, what you want to do is you want to ask for that energy to show up, ask for that energy to show up, and then start choosing your life based on what matches those energies. What do I mean by matching energy? Well, it's like basically, we're all extremely energetically aware, but have never really been shown how to use it. Like you can walk into a room and know if somebody's upset, or you can walk into a room and know if somebody's happy without them even saying a word. So yeah, we have a sense of that energy. You know, you'll think about somebody and 2 minutes later they'll call you. You have an awareness of energy. So it's beginning to learn how to follow that and making choices when you know how you go to make a choice and you might get like a knot in your stomach, or you're like, oh, this is not gonna turn out very well, but you make it anyway, and and you're like, yeah, that wasn't going to turn out
right, you know it.
But this is making the choices where you're like, wow, that actually creates a sense of lightness in my world. Here's a couple of things with that is if you're looking at making a choice, you want to go to the question of, okay, so what's my life going to be like in 5 years if I choose this? Just get a sense. It may make you a little lighter. It may make you might be like, oh, that doesn't feel very good, and now ask, okay, what's my life going to be like in 5 years' time if I don't choose this? See which one creates more lightness in your world. And one of the tools that we talk about is what's true for you will always make you lighter. Always. Okay. What's a lie will always make you heavier. So you want to start developing that. And it's not even developing because we all have a capacity with this, but for most of us, we've used our minds to eliminate it. So it's more rekindling it, reestablishing that awareness that you have, and ask that question and get a sense of which one makes you lighter. Get a sense that you already know what you want to choose. You know what life you desire to create, but for a lot of us, we don't necessarily trust that. Like, I mean, somebody could come to me and go, hey, I'm having a hard time with this choice. Can you help me with this choice? Okay, so what's your life going to be like in 5 years' time? If you choose, what's your life going to be in 5 years' time if you don't choose? And they're like, oh, I don't know. I don't really get a sense of either or. And I'm like, okay, flip a coin. And you would go, what? Flip a coin? Yeah, but if you flip a coin and it lands on heads when you wanted it to land on tails, you'll know that you've already made the choice.
Yes, sir.
But for a lot of us, what we want to do first of all, before we make that choice, is we want to create the perfect reason and justification so we know we're right for choosing it in the first place.
Oh my goodness, Brendon, this is so amazing. Knowledge bomb. This is so amazing. And what you're saying, I oftentimes listening to you right now, and oftentimes not doing this, not asking these questions. These are some powerful questions because they put things in perspective. And if not having those questions, or right now, I have this question and I wrote it down and I'm getting ready to write it on my sticky note and I'm going to put it in my phone. And I'm really going to have this question, asking myself, because this is really, I realize over the last 5 years, the power of questions, answering the right questions can change your life. Write this question down in 5 years. 5 years. If you don't do this, what is your life going to look like? If you do it, what your life can? So the possibilities, those questions, what is it doing? What is it doing in our mind? What is it triggering? What's going on to help us out?
Well, okay. So I'm glad you brought this up because it really is the questions. The questions are designed to give you an awareness, okay? And for a lot of us, for most of us, pretty much we could say all of us, I think at this point, is what we've been taught is questions are designed to give you an answer. So when we're looking for it like that, it's like asking a question means what's the answer to this? And we're already trying to determine what that answer is based on the question we ask. This is a little bit different, and you want to practice this and really get to recognize that if you come to a conclusion or if you come to an answer, nothing can come into existence that doesn't match it. Okay. And I think we can all see that in our lives. I think we can all relate to that. We're like, well, this is just the way it is.
Yeah.
And guess what? That's just the way it is. Nothing greater is ever going to show up because you can't receive it.
Yeah.
But if we look at it from the question is designed to give you awareness, is what you do is you want to ask a question, and then rather than look for an answer, you want to allow the universe to begin to give you a sense of possibility. So I would say with this is it's really going beyond your mind and actually accessing your knowing, and what you know as a being based on there is not much you don't know. And for a lot of us, we try and use our minds as a source for knowing. But the only problem with that is your mind can't tell you much that hasn't already existed. I mean, they talk about the great minds of the world. Albert Einstein was one of them. Brilliant, phenomenal man. And he came up with the theory of relativity. He didn't come up with that with his mind because it never existed. He extrapolated that from question. And I know for me, I think we can all probably relate to this also, is notice a day that you're having where you're way more in question. And I don't mean that means necessarily like in your head, like asking questions like, what's this going to do? And what's this, and trying to come up with a perfect question. Yeah. What I more so mean is being in a state of question. Yeah. So it's more like everything's kind of got a sense of curiosity to it. Like, oh, I wonder how it would get any better than this, or I wonder what else is possible beyond this, or I wonder what else I could choose, or I wonder, rather than, oh, well, everything's just, I'm having a crappy day. Well, notice when you're having the crappy days, how many questions are you asking? Because we've all had them. You wake up in the morning on the wrong side of the bed and then you just continue.
Yeah. Oh, man, you're really helping us dropping some knowledge bombs on us on today. I want to do one more thing. I want you to give us, because we're talking about the power of choice and what questions can do for us. I want you to give us some practical questions that can help us in making choices, or just something to think about that you can share with the Lead to Greatness community to help us reach our greatest potential.
Okay, cool. I love it. And, because this is something, like I said, is practicing to get yourself in that state of question, is begin in the morning. So rather than wake up and go, okay, well, this is what my day is going to be like, which is an answer, a conclusion, start with the question of, okay, so who am I today and what grand and glorious adventures can I have? Begin your day like that. And then what could I choose today that would expand my world? Like, what choices could I make today that I've never chosen? And you kind of just begin with questions like that. And then when something shows up, when anything shows up in your life, what you want to do is you want to ask, how does it get any better than this? So when something great happens, how does it get any better than this? But even when something not so great shows up, is rather than going, oh, well, that sucked, and and that's terrible and that's bad, you go, okay, how does it get any better than this?
Yes.
You're still asking for something greater. And another great question that is part of access consciousness is, what else is possible with everything? I grew up with a dad who would be like, well, this is the way it is, nothing gets better than this, and this is what you live with, and blah, 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 And I was like, that can't be true. Surely there's got to be more to life than that. When I ask these questions and I'm willing to be in that question, I know that there's more possible. And that's the other thing I think for a lot of us is, if you're someone that gets really frustrated, or you just got this nagging sense of like annoyance in your world, is how much of that is based on you knowing that there's so much more possible, yet not making the choices to get you there. And I know that for myself. Like, if I'm frustrated, I'm like, okay, what am I aware of here that I'm not choosing?
Definitely helping the Lead to Greatness community. And I want to thank you so much for this information and coming on the Lead to Greatness podcast on today, sharing this amazing information, this paradigm shift that is happening right now as listeners are listening. Both of us or in Houston, Texas. So here you are in Houston.
I love that.
Hey, Houstonian. But there's someone that's listening right now like, man, I really want to connect with him and I want to know more. If someone wants to connect with you and what you're doing, where should they go?
You can find me on my website, which is brendonwatt.com. But I would also highly suggest checking out the Access Consciousness website. You know, there's thousands of facilitators around the world, and the founders are actually based here in Houston.
Really?
So, yeah, Houston's a bit of a hub for us. We've actually got some different things. There's so much more available, you know, and if any of this, I would say if any of this kind of sparks something in your world, check it out. And, you know, I know it changes my life every day, and I, to the best of my ability, live it. But I also know hundreds of thousands of people around the world use it too. So,
on behalf of the Lead to Greatness community, I want to thank you so very much for taking time out of your busy schedule and adding value to it.
You are a gift, my friend. It's been an absolute pleasure to have a conversation with you.
We want to thank you for joining us today on the Lead to Greatness podcast. And if this is your first time, don't forget to subscribe. Hit that like button, hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of these amazing episodes. And if you're on iTunes, go ahead and rate the podcast and leave a review. That helps get the word out to great leaders and entrepreneurs like yourself. So we want to thank you for joining us today. So remember, if you help others reach their greatest potential, together we can change the world. Peace.